Okay, before we get too excited, got Paul and Chris here.
Howdy.
There we go. And we are removing the 3.2 out of the XC70. So basically that just entailed a bunch of getting everything out of the way, right? AC lines, power steering lines, the engine wiring harness, the battery box, all the main electrical. Paul, why don't you go and explain a little bit about just the difference between the V8 and the XC70 on how this mounts inside the actual engine compartment and what we got to do to drop it down onto some pallets here.
Sure. Starting with the P1s and the P3s, the short 6 and the compact 5 are mounted to the chassis differently. On P80s and P2s, the engine sits on mounts that are on the subframe.
They're actually on the subframe.
But it's a little different with the 6-cylinder and the P3. The engine is hanging. We've got a mount over here and a mount over here, which means, unfortunately, we can't just drop the engine out with the subframe in one package.
So right now, this engine is basically sitting in here right now with this bolt.
Yep.
Hanging onto this whole top engine mount here.
Held in place on that side there, and there is one lower torque mount that is attached to the subframe.
Which basically will just allow it to keep it from tilting. So once we get ready to lower this down, we're probably going to set it onto some blocks and then a pallet and lower it down. Then we'll undo these mounts, the top engine mounts, and let it rest without crushing the oil pan or the oil pump or anything like that down there, or solenoids that are underneath the engine. And then what we'll do is get it out. We'll raise the car up and then go from there. One of the fun parts that Paul and I just did was we got the power steering cooler lines out of the way, which sits really funny in front of the AC condenser and the radiator. So we had to loosen everything up on the radiator so we can rock it forward, pull the cooler line out, and rest it up here. So we're going to take it out all as one unit, but we're close to getting this thing out from the vehicle. Should be good, right, Paul?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Paul and I just finalized getting everything out of the way, basically double checking everything. We just got the transmission, steering linkage, a fuse box, and the top cover here that was to this motor mount that's holding this entire engine over here. And Paul just lined up the pallets that we have underneath here, lined up perfectly with the subframe, the oil pan, and the rear angle gear.
We had to do a little bit of creative shimming. Our suspended engine mounts for the 6-cylinders means there's only one mount at the back of the motor attached to the subframe.
Right.
If you remove the mounts too early, the whole thing will rock forward.
Yep.
So on the pallet, we have some shims in place under the oil pan to keep everything nice and level.
Yep. And now Paul's going to go ahead and start removing the bolts on the subframe before we remove the bolts on the upper engine, or the engine. Paul is underneath removing the subframe bolts before we remove the engine mounts. So that way this will be completely resting on the pallet. Then we can lift the car up and watch the engine and the subframe stay put. So we're getting close. Okay, got Paul watching the engine and clearance of everything as we go up. Something's over here. Whoa, something just went. Snappy snap.
Our evap line.
Evap line, and this too. What's this? This is really tight. Whoa.
Is that steering?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get this evap first.
Pile of
You're right.
XC70 parts.
There's an extra piece tack welded onto here.